Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is 5:30 on a Friday morning, Friday the 13th. Maybe Christopher the Gremlin will join us this morning. That seems to be our modus operandi on days like this. It is the time of day, 5:30 in the morning is the time of day that we pull a toy out of the toy box, a random object, if you will, out of the Random Object Randomogrifier. I'm going to go ahead and spritz these watercolors so they're nice and juicy here in a few minutes when we're ready to use. This is when we pull a random object out of the randomogrifier and we talk about it, and while I attempt to sketch it. Sometimes we get a really nice sketch. You know what? We've gotten really nice sketches almost every time we've tried it. So if you're new to the channel, give us a shout out either in the comments during the live stream, or if you're watching afterwards. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know where you are. I got a comment the other day from somebody that was watching during her lunch period in France. So hello in France. I haven't seen Elizabeth or Claudia around lately. I hope they're doing okay. But Ivy comes to us from the Midwest in the United States. I'd tell you where, but I don't really want you tracking her down. I'll let her tell you where she's from. We're drawing a sperm whale today. Let me tell you, watching the documentaries about sperm whales was heartbreaking. I'm not even sure I can tell lighthearted stories today about our history with sperm whales. I mean, absolutely heartbreaking. The way they were hunted, the way they interact with us, their intelligence. Absolutely heartbreaking. They've been around, sperm whales have been around, let's see, they started differentiating about 60 million years ago. About 35 million years ago, they started becoming different types of cetaceans, and sperm whales deviated somewhere around, I think it was 12 million years ago. I think, you know, the funny thing about to me, the funny thing about the websites is I think most of the websites were whitewashed, if you will, to eliminate references to the name sperm whale historically, because you know, they have to deal with 13-year-olds going on their sites and reading stuff, and I just think that that's sad, because I'd sure like to better understand why they have the name they have. I always thought it was because they were shaped like sperm, and I always thought that we called them sperm whales long before we knew that sperm existed. No, that's not the case at all. Sperm whales, what did they used to be called? Toothheads. What were they called before? I made notes. The name worked out to something like toothhead, large toothhead. But at some point in the 1700s, when we started commercially whaling them, they took on the name sperm whale because in this area of their head, they have a large store of a white waxy fat that they called spermaceti, that they say they believed it was the sperm of the whale. Now, why they would believe that the sperm whale had sperm in its head makes absolutely no sense. Got some extra lines there I need to clean up. I need to make sure that I don't ink the wrong lines. So, like I said, it doesn't make any sense why they thought that was the semen of the whale. But the name stuck, and so that's what they were called, as sperm whales. And I always thought it was because they were shaped like sperm cells, and that we named sperm cells after them. And no, that's not the case. It's really that we thought they looked like sperm and that they had sperm in their forehead. They were hunted. In the 1700s, they became very heavily hunted for food and for their fat. The wax was highly coveted for candles and cosmetics and a great many other things that don't make any sense to kill a very smart, beautiful animal like this when there are so many easier, faster sources available. The fact that they hunted 38,000 of them a year, their quota was 38,000 a year, and they would boil them down to render the fat so they could have oil to lubricate the machines of the Industrial Revolution in the 1700s. Because it was prior to discovering petroleum in any usable sense, because we didn't really discover petroleum until the 1860s in, was it Philadelphia or Pennsylvania? I believe it's Philadelphia. I could be wrong. I'm on the spot. Whenever you're on the spot, your brain does funky things that don't really make any sense. But until the 1860s, we didn't really have a source for petroleum. And so whale blubber was what they used to lubricate everything. Can't talk, Harding. But this is recent enough in human history that there's video. They were still hunting these things up into the 50s, 60s. And so there's video of how they did it. And it makes it, I mean, it was just heartbreaking because they're so intelligent and they're so curious. They would just come up to the boats to see what was going on, and guys with sharp sticks would just stab them and kill them and tie them to the boat. And then another one would come up and they'd stab it and kill it, tie it to the boat till they had as many as could be towed by the boat. And even still more would swim up to see what was going on because they're that intelligent and curious. Apparently not intelligent enough to tell that their friends are dead, friends and family are dead, but intelligent enough to be curious about what the boat is doing and why their friends are following the boat so closely. Heartbreaking. I can't tell you how depressed I was watching the documentaries. I ended up watching about 3 hours of documentaries about it because I just couldn't believe it. I just thought there had to be better news than this. They have one calf every 5 years. And females only calf for about from the age of 20 to the age of what was it, 50, 40? There's only about a 20-year period that the females actually calve. And when they do, they only calve once every 5 years. And so the reproductive rate is not very fast at all. They make a clicking noise to use for echolocation. They whistle and hum, but they make a clicking noise to use for echolocation. And the clicking noise is like a punch to their prey. When they finally catch up to their prey, the clicking noise is like it's like a punch to their head, to the nervous system. And it allows them to hunt in very, very deep water. Their ears are highly adapted to hearing underwater. And so they struggle with things like military sonar, the oil and gas industry using echolocation to locate oil under the seabed, disrupts their sonar, disrupts their paths for their mating rituals. And then top that off with us hunting 38,000 of them a year. You can see that their numbers began to dwindle pretty rapidly. By the 1940s, companies that hunted these things were struggling because the animals they were catching were not producing enough fat and meat. Oh, and they sold the meat to dog food companies, to pet food companies. But by the 1940s, the amount of meat they were collecting, the amount of meat and fat that they were collecting off of the whales was dwindling. And it turns out it's because there weren't any adults left. They weren't catching enough adults. They were only catching juveniles. The adult population wasn't replenishing fast enough to keep up with the hunting practices. So they expanded their hunting into the Pacific Ocean, which they weren't traditionally doing that. They were traditionally staying in the Atlantic, and the Azul and the Indian Ocean. But they expanded their hunt into the Pacific Ocean because they were desperate to find more adults to meet their need of their quota of 38,000 animals a year. How are we doing on time? Sorry, 5:45. Let me dry this real quick. I want those marks to stay exactly where they are when I come in with the top layer. The beauty of this toy is it's mostly just a blob, so there's not a whole lot of detail. Let me dry this real quick. This is, somebody asked me yesterday why I work so small. I think it's my mom. This is another reason. Imagine having to dry a full sheet like this. I'm going to come back in with the ultra fine pen and add some more details. Now the blowhole is back here behind the cranium. And I was really kind of upset about how intelligent they were and how we were still hunting them and killing them all the way up into the 40s. We actually enacted a moratorium on hunting these things in 1986. They decided to make it illegal worldwide, except for some subsistent hunting by some indigenous peoples and for the purpose of scientific research. And so Japan particularly decided to start a scientific research vessel just specifically for, researching sperm whales. But they butcher them on the scientific vessel. They butcher them at sea. So I'm not sure I lend much credence to the idea that they're doing it in the name of science. Because even with the moratorium, we're still killing about 22 of these animals a year. Now, they're not endangered. They don't know how many there are because they're deep divers, but they know there's somewhere between 1 million and 300,000. Or they believe there's somewhere between 1 million and 300,000. I hope it's more than 300,000. But they have a mortality rate, infant mortality rate of about 16%. And they only calve once every 5 years. So at best guess, they're reproducing about 115,000 new calves a year that survive past infancy. Which means their numbers are growing because they're not being hunted to the extent that they were before. But like I said, their biggest struggle now is like the Navy uses echolocation to find submarines. They fly by with planes that disrupt the hunting patterns of the whales, and they use the echolocation, the sound guns, to use echolocation to find oil under the seabed, and all of these things. Those are the biggest issues the sperm whale has right now, that causes them difficulty, because it confuses them in their hunt for prey, and it confuses them in their migration pattern for mating. So they're constantly working on new ways to do those things where they can more direct the sound waves instead of having the sound waves just go all out into the ocean like they do now and disrupt, because sperm whales aren't the only ones affected by this. It's just the ones we're talking about today. Can't talk, Arting. The companies that used to make their money hunting these things are now making their money in tourism. They have all of the technology to find them in the ocean, and the knowledge to find them in the ocean. And so, whether it's scientific tourism for people trying to do studies, or whether it's general population tourism who just want to go whale watching, the companies that used to hunt them for food are now hunting them for tourism, which is a whole lot better reason, and probably better money. What is today? You know what? Let me see if my other pen here. This is my kit that I take with me every day to work. This is my daily carry kit right here. It's got my armband in it, so I can use that instead of a paper towel. And this is my KiwiCo brush fountain pen that I use, that has a more flexible nib. But the ink may be dried up in it, sure enough. So I'm going to have to add some ink to it real quick. But this will let me get a bolder line. Because the animal is so dark, I want to make sure that I have a nice bold line around it for illustrative purposes. But again, the nice thing is that we put a moratorium on hunting them in 1986, and most countries abide by that. Russia, China, Japan. They are still hunting them. But I gotta tell you, I'm with Greenpeace on this one. I never thought I'd side with Greenpeace, but when I saw them, when I saw the whaling vessels, I was like, shoot, yeah, ram them ships in the side. All right, calling it. See how nice and bold that line was? I like that pen. I have 2 or 3 of them. I should add one to this list, to this group right here. So conservation, things you can do to help sperm whales and all sea life is that you can support legislation that stops the hunting of them. What is today? The 13th, Friday the 13th. You can make noises to the countries like Japan, China, and Russia and tell them we're not pleased with the way that they are hunting them. You can take vacations. This is probably one of the nicest things you can do. You can take vacations and go see the whales, because the money you spend going to see the whales supports the scientific research, and it helps us learn more about them so that we can do more to prevent damage to them. All right, so let's see here. This is what we ended up with compared to the photograph the reference photo that I posted. But let's look at it. Let's look at it compared to what I see. Sounds like Ozzy. So there we have it. There's our sperm whale for the day. Nice little illustration. Tomorrow, where's my face? Tomorrow, Girl 2 has already pulled the toy for what we're going to do on Saturday the 14th, and it is it is a bust of Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt. I wish Safari made these, and there's about a dozen of the presidential busts in their collection. I wish they'd go ahead and do the whole 48 of them. I think that would be neat to have, just to keep going. They could re-release it every few years. They could re-release a new set. They could release a new set because there'd be a new set of presidents. I think that'd be cool. I'd like to have the full presidential bust set. So Safari, if you're watching, call me. Okay, guys, that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. You are my accountability buddies. You are my art buddies that give me the accountability to make sure I stick with my practice every day. Jump up out of bed every day looking forward to this, and I will be here tomorrow. Same Artistic Biker time, same Artistic Biker channel, and we dance. We dance until somebody says they see me dancing, because that way I know that the lag has caught up. The lag takes a little while. Sometimes the airwaves don't carry the video as fast as the broadcast, and so sometimes